basically, if you've seen what's happening to Russell Brand or what happened to Scott Ritter or what happened to Elliot Spitzer or what happened to Anthony Weiner or what happened to all these people, they get sex smeared. And as Whitney's about to explain to you, this is a very common thing in the political world. Sexual blackmail. Listen to this.
Why is it nobody else is reporting on this?
Well, I guess I don't really know exactly why that would be, but the silence is very eerie about major aspects of the Epstein case. It ended up being 1,000 pages because as I was writing about Epstein, a lot of the connections that came up, I was just, increasingly aware that a lot of people in the American public, a lot of the names I was coming across, most people weren't going to be familiar with.
Correct.
Banks like the Bank of Credit and Commerce International or BCCI, the scandal that involved, or even things like Iran-Contra, people may have heard the name but don't really know what it involved. So I figured I was going to have to go back and sort of explain that to people. So that type of context is volume 1 of the book, and also the history of sexual blackmail and how it's been sort of an undercurrent in some past political scandals in American history, and how in these sorts of networks in which Epstein was inhabiting, that type of practice and exploitation even of minors for those purposes was actually disturbingly common. So Epstein starts to look less and less of he's not an anomaly, basically.
Right.
By the time you get through with volume 1. And so volume 2 is sort of my effort to, dig up as much as I could, with stuff that's publicly available, really, about Epstein and also his greatest benefactor, Leslie Wexner.
So the thread here, the common thread is, again, the kind of crossing of the aisle, or the unification, or basically the disregarding of the labels of left and right, because this is Glenn Beck. And I used to think Glenn Beck was a nutbag during the Obama administration because he had this chalkboard that he'd draw these lines between. And now I think he's probably one of the more sane people in the world, because he's pointing out these things. So this is kind of a really, I want to say it's a cute and touching moment. The banter here between Glenn and Whitney. So listen to this.
It's not important to me. What's important to me is your character and your work, which is phenomenal. So
in case you don't know, I didn't set this up very well. Whitney wrote a book about Jeffrey Epstein, a two-volume book about Jeffrey Epstein, and Glenn Beck. That's why Glenn Beck has her on.
I'm guessing you and I don't necessarily agree on policies. Maybe
I don't know. I just, at this point, I think my politics are I don't want the government to be run by organized crime.
That's what
I think that's a starting point for most Americans. Let's start there.
Right. That's what I was driving to is there are big things on the table that no one's talking about. And
we're all focused on the little stuff they've used to divide and conquer us this whole time. And big things are happening. And basically we are being herded into a techno-feudalism, slavery. I don't know. There's a lot of different names for it going around, but it's not good.
Right.
And it's organized crime, running the show.
At the highest levels. And also evil. I mean, it's just getting so dark. And, I'm to the point where, can you give me 9 of the top 10 Bill of Rights? You know what I mean? Do you agree with those? Give me anything that is foundational. They're all being destroyed. All of them. They don't mean anything anymore. But those are the things that can bring us together. And they do. I mean, I'm sure you're called a radical conspiracy theorist. There's a difference between conspiracy theory and conspiracy facts.
Sure.
So I would call you conspiracy fact purveyor.
Yeah, I guess so,
Listen to
because
this.
conspiracy is a real crime, and it's happening,
Right.
and it's been happening.
Right.
And, a lot of us are sort of fed this, when we're in school and stuff, sort of this naive, I guess you could call it a fairy tale version of history where there's no corruption, everything's fine. The mob disappeared decades ago,
Right.
nothing to see here, but that's not the
Right.
real history of this country.
Tell me.
So that theme of kind of like we need to come together is present through a lot of these clips I have tonight. And this next one is where I got that caption, Whitney Webb thinks you're naive. So this is the last little one from this segment. This is the last clip from this segment I'm going to show you. And she just really nails it down here. Listen closely, libs.
Feudalism, and how do you create a class of slaves that cannot even cognitively rebel ever again?
It is why, these teachers unions said, oh, we care about, minorities and everything else. They did more damage to a whole generation of minorities more than they did white kids.
In
but
general.
They put kids in general into the gears of the machine.
I live in South America. The lockdowns there were brutal. Everyone was under house arrest, basically. You were only allowed out of your house twice a week with papers that you had to show to police. Each paper was good for like roughly 3 hours. And my daughter goes to daycare. She's 4, and she was thankfully, shielded from a lot of this and was able to have interaction and stuff. But a lot of kids weren't. And a lot of kids her age and younger are nonverbal. They scream, like, instead of talking. I mean, it's devastating. And the fact that these people, act like it was for the children or for public health when, the evidence increasingly comes out and it wasn't, it was for something else. And I think it's increasingly becoming clear what that something else is and was.
What we're doing to farming, the ESG and World Economic Forum plan is evil. It seems an overused word. And it's one I swore off about 5 years ago. I said, I don't want to call things evil because it has to be evil is a different level. But when you're talking about controlling and dumbing down and enslaving and destroying, I don't know what other word to use for it. And they've gotten away with saying this is conspiracy theory. Well, they just, I think that's, since the term really entered the American vernacular after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, it's been used to basically claim that if you think powerful people get together to discuss how to advance their power and keep it at the expense of everyone else, that they have any agency, you're crazy. It all has to be a coincidence. They never have any bad intentions. The people that, are the oligarchs that, fund our politicians and have ties with intelligence and have monopolies and, the technology that runs our lives and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, it's, I think at this point you have to be quite naive to think that's actually the case, but. So how do people like the,
So that's pretty much the gist of it. You have to be pretty naive to think that the people with all the power have your best interests at heart. If you think that